Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Teaching English to Young Learners course lecturer, my classmates, and my amazing team. My name is Marsya Novariani, the moderator for our group presentation. Today we will be discussing about teaching, listening, and speaking. But before we start, I would like to introduce our group member first. Next slide, please. There is Marsya Novariani, myself, Saeful Anwar, Ulfah Awalunisa, and Zahrani. Without further ado, let's start this presentation, and the first speaker will be myself. So first consideration for teaching, listening, and speaking. In considering how to effectively teach listening and speaking skills in the early years language classroom, it's crucial to integrate authentic tasks that reflect children's real-life experiences, aligning with their interests and daily interaction. These tasks may range from listening to a cartoon on TV to engage in conversation with peers or family members about various topics. Teachers should strive to bring such real-life listening and speaking opportunities into the classroom, fostering meaningful communication experiences for learners. Recognizing the inseparable nature of listening and speaking skills, educators should focus on developing oral communication proficiency through engaging activities and meaningful text types. By establishing a foundation built on authentic interaction and a focus on both listening and speaking skills, teacher can effectively nurture language development and communication abilities in young learners within the EYL classroom. That is the first material. The next material will be delivered by Zahrani. Time and place is yours, please.
Okay, here I will explain about consideration for teaching listening. Initially, we will explore effective methods for teaching listening, a skill often overlooked as passive, despite its subtlety. Subtlety, listening is an active process requiring diverse skills. Morley, 2009 and 2001, underscores its significance, stating we listen twice as much as we speak, 4 times more than we read, and 5 times more than we write. As the most utilized language skill, it's vital to ensure young learners comprehend auditory input. Understanding the essence of listening is pivotal in devising optimal teaching strategies. Next slide, please. Okay, here is what is listening. It's crucial to recognize that listening is an active process requiring the listener to engage with what they hear and accurately interpret the message. This process, often swift in our native language, involves various steps and are easily overlooked. Peterson, 2001, characterized listening as a complex, interactive process of creating meaning. According to Anderson, 2009, from a cognitive psychology perspective, listening comprehension unfolds in 3 phases. The first is perceptual processing, and then parsing and utilization. Initially, sounds encoded with language are perceived and identified, and then the language is decoded and stored briefly in short-term memory. And finally, comparison occurs in the utilization stage as the listener connects the language heard with ideas stored in long-term memory. For second language learners, especially young ones with limited language knowledge and schema, this process can be challenging. Next slide, please. And here is bottom-up and top-down listening. Listening is an interpretive skill, like reading. Interpreting language is often broken down into two psycholinguistic processes, bottom-up and top-down. Bottom-up processing involves beginning with understanding the individual sounds of a language and then gradually assembling them to decipher words, sentences, and literal meanings. Essentially, it's about piecing together the smaller linguistic elements to comprehend what someone is expressing. Some example of listening activities for young learners that focus on bottom-up processing skills are: the first is students listen to a pair of words and circle if the words are the same or different. And then students match a word they hear with its picture. And then students listen to a short dialogue and fill in the blanks of a transcript. And next is top-down processing involves understanding a message based on the surrounding context and the listener's familiarity with the type of text being presented. Instead of solely focusing on the linguistic aspect of the message, learners rely on contextual cues to derive meaning and may even anticipate what will be said. uh, to work on top-down techniques that focus on the activation of background knowledge and the meaning of the text. Teachers can do the following with their young learners. The first is, before students listen to an announcement, they are shown the context of an airport and predict what they might hear. And then students listen to some utterance and describe the emotional reaction they hear, like happy, sad, or yang lainnya. Next slide, please. And here is principles for teaching listening to young learners. When designing listening activities for young learners, it's important to remember the following seven principles. The first one is prepare teacher talk carefully. Jadi maksud dari kalimat yang pertama itu adalah pastikan instruksi dan penjelasan yang diberikan oleh guru itu jelas dan ringkas untuk mempermudah pemahaman siswa. And next is use listening activities that reflect real life listening. Jadi maksud kalimat yang kedua ini mengintegrasikan tugas dan mendengarkan yang meniru situasi dunia nyata yang autentik dan memungkinkan siswa untuk terlibat dengan bahasa seperti mereka lakukan dalam situasi yang praktis. Yang selanjutnya adalah use developmentally appropriate listening activities. Maksud dari kalimat ini yaitu pilih aktivitas mendengarkan yang selaras dengan tingkat perkembangan kognitif siswa dan linguistik siswa. Jadi pastikan aktivitas itu tidak terlalu rumit atau tidak terlalu sederhana atau mudah. Yang selanjutnya yaitu use a variety of techniques to make listening input comprehensible. Ya, jadi maksud dari kalimat ini yaitu gunakan berbagai strategi untuk memasukkan membuat masukan mendengarkan dapat dimengerti seperti alat bantu visual, gerak tubuh, dan bahasa yang disederhanakan untuk memenuhi gaya dan kemampuan belajar yang berbeda. Yang selanjutnya itu check comprehension using a variety of response types. Jadi maksud dari kalimat ini itu menilai pemahaman menggunakan berbagai jenis respon, termasuk respon verbal, respon tertulis, dan isyarat nonverbal untuk mengukur pemahaman peserta didik secara akurat. Yang keenam yaitu keep listening active, always give learners a listening task. Jadi maksud dari kalimat itu ini itu adalah jaga siswa agar tetap terlibat secara aktif selama tugas listening dengan menetapkan tujuan atau tugas tertentu untuk mendorong mereka memusatkan perhatian dan berpartisipasi aktif dalam aktivitas listening. Yang terakhir yaitu equip your students with intelligent guesswork strategies. Jadi maksud dari kalimat ini yaitu mendorong siswa untuk mengembangkan strategi menebak cerdas dengan membekali mereka dengan alat dan teknik untuk menyimpulkan makna dari konteks atau petunjuk linguistik ketika menemukan kata atau frase yang asing. I think that's all from me. The next material will be delivered by Saeful. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So here I will explain about consideration for teaching speaking. So for most people, speaking is the language skill that represents the main mode of communication. In a native language, the first skill parents will teaching. The first skill parents work on teaching their babies is speaking. It is the skill that helps children become an interactive part of a family and a community. In most cases, the point of speaking is two-way oral communication. Young learners are still learning how to communicate effectively in their native language, and they are still working on their ability to respond appropriately to questions and explain their ideas. Therefore, English young learner teachers have to consider what kinds of oral communication are appropriate activities for learners at certain ages. In addition to helping them communicate orally in English, teachers should check with young learners regular classes to see what kinds of speaking skills are expected at different age levels. So that's why for many reasons, speaking is often considered a very difficult language skill to learn to do well. As Printer 2006 points out, this is because to be able to speak fluently, we have to monitor our output and correct any mistakes, as well as planning for what we are going to say next. Next slide, please. Fluency versus accuracy. So, with speaking as productive skills, the main concerns are issues of fluency versus accuracy. Teachers are always concerned with both of these. For this case, the teacher can do uh, focused on meaningful activities and not grammatical explanation. So, the teachers can focus on the message-oriented approach. So this is like at the beginning levels, the language being taught is in a small chunks. So the possibility of repetition and drilling for accuracy is just as possible while doing activities to build vocabulary and practice meaningful expressions. And then the expressions such as how are you, good morning, etc. is a fixed chunk that can be taught as a greeting and repeated at the beginning of class. And students don't have to analyze this fixed chunk of meaning and understand it when the teacher uses it every day to greet the class. So the teacher also can get students to respond with another chunk such as how are you? And the teacher says, fine, thank you. And then in terms of pronunciation, teachers can provide them with plenty of models and changes to imitate. That's because young learners are such great imitators. Their ability to repeat after a model accurately is one of aspect of speaking that should be easy to develop with young learners. So providing them with plenty of models and changes to imitate is really important. Next slide, please. And then here are the principles for teaching speaking to young learners. The first one is build classroom routines in English. So teachers can give their students expressions such as hello, hi, how are you, I'm fine, and you? Or who's missing? Where's Adam? Goodbye, see you tomorrow. And those are the expressions that uh, can be used as the routine of teaching in the beginning of teaching and learning. And then the next one is use speaking activities that reflect real life communication. So, appropriate text types for young learners will be the same as the list given in the listening section. That list included songs, chants, rap, storytellings, plays, TV shows and commercials, news and weather reports, announcement, cartoons, movies, documentaries, jokes, riddles, etc. And these are all oral text types that teachers can use to encourage students to practice speaking. And in most EFL classrooms, teachers use lots of dialogues to practice speaking, particularly ones found in the textbook. And these dialogues usually reflect real life tasks like greetings, buying something at a store, visiting a doctor, asking for directions, asking for the time, and etc. Number three is use speaking activities that are developmentally appropriate. So teachers can use a lot of things such as conversation and then uh, with the topic asking someone for directions, such as where is the school, where is the grocery shop, etc. And then teachers can also use songs as the media of teaching. So that technique will be more engaging for students and teachers. And then number four is use variety of activities to improve both accuracy and fluency. So, talking about accuracy and fluency, to improve those to improve those aspects, teachers can use the repeat after me technique. So, like students repeat after me, this is a horse, and then students repeat that. This is a horse, and then etc. etc. So that will be helping students to increase their vocabulary, pronunciation, and fluency accuracy. Number five is build classroom interactions by giving students plenty of opportunities to participate. So, giving them opportunities to participate is really important. Okay, the fifth one is uh, build classroom interaction by giving students plenty of opportunities to participate. And giving them opportunities to participate or to speak while learning is really important for their learning process because it will engage the learning process. So activities such as repetition, like in the previous point, will also increase their engagement in learning. So for example, teacher asks student like repeat after me, where is the school? And then students repeat that, where is the school? And then teachers, it's on Main Street. Then also students repeat that with it's on Main Street. Or teachers can also give them a Q&A or question and answer, such as Marwa, where is the library? And then Marwa says it's on Center Street. like that. And then the next one is keep the speaking environment active and do not correct errors explicitly. Mm, and the last one is equip your young learners with negotiation strategies. So for speaking, students need strategies for negotiation of meaning. For the EFL classroom, this includes use of classroom language and knowing how to ask questions and make clarification requests. Young learners can learn these chunks of language to help them clarify meaning with the teacher in a whole class or when working with peers in cooperative groups for less controlled activities. So here are some ideas like the expressions such as I don't understand, I don't know, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Can you help me please? Or can you repeat that? Can or could you say it again? I have a question. What does that mean? How do you spell that word? Etc. So I think that's all from me and I will give it back to moderator.
All right. Thank you, Saiful, for the presentation. Next will be delivered by Ulfah. Time and place is your please.
Okay, thank you so much for the chance. I will try to deliver my take on effective listening and speaking activities. So, in order to develop listening and speaking activities, teachers can conceptualize them in three distinct stages: before, during, and after listening. Without further ado, let's just get straight into the activities before listening or in the warm-up stage. So in the activities before listening, teachers can include preparing students for the activity, like checking their prior knowledge, guessing what will they learn, and introducing them to useful vocabulary and concepts. For the examples of the activities, it can be personalized listening materials to make it more accessible and realistic for the students, or you can show some pictures of visuals to trigger students' prior knowledge. Children loves to see colors, like they love to see visuals, they like to see pictures. So you can show some pictures to trigger their interest in learning process, and then brainstorm students' knowledge about a specific topic with a graphic organizer, for example, like word map, T-charts, or listing, and then review known vocabulary. Last but not least, teachers can pre-teach unknown vocabulary by using ReLIA, pictures, flashcards, etc. For the activities during listening or presentation stage, make sure that the students are actively listening by using visuals such as pictures, facial expressions, gestures, Q&A sessions to check on their comprehensions during listening. And then here are some techniques for making input more comprehensible. First, use visual cues, gestures, reality and graphic organizers. Translate and explain difficult words or expressions. Use items in short and simple sentences. Pronounce the words clearly, speak slower, repeat and rephrase. This is so important for the students. And then connect students to their background knowledge. And this is a comprehensive list of listening activities. A. Students listen and show comprehension through action. So you can do listen and point. The students point to the correct picture or object, or listen and move. So students respond by moving the whole body. So it's whole body respond. And then B, students listen and read and show comprehension through action. it can be done by listen circle. Students circle the keywords on a page of text with multiple choices, or you can do listen and sequence words or sentences. So the teacher provides word cards for students to put in the correct order. Or C, students listen and show comprehension through production. It's either speaking or writing. So what can be done is listen and repeat orally. So students repeat what is said by the teacher, or you can do listen and write or dictation. So students have to write every word by the teacher says. And last but not least, for the activities after listening or practice and application stages, there are several activity example that can be done to check the students' comprehensions. The first one is read aloud to practice pronunciation. Number two is practice and or dramatize a dialogue. And number three is use jokes, riddles, tongue twisters, or even games. But remember that these are a few examples. We have more examples, but I think the time wouldn't be enough to explain all of the examples. So you can check more examples later. And for the last material is the sample lesson. I'll show you the sample lesson that we already prepared before. This is a sample lesson. The title of the lesson is Exploring Animal Habitats. We thought that children love animals, right? So we think that if we try to teach them about animal, I think it will trigger their interest in learning process. And the target students will be grade 7 students aged 12 until 13 with beginner proficiency in English. The skills to be emphasized is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. But the main focus on this lesson will still be listening and speaking. So the reading and writing skills is just a little to be emphasized. So we're still focusing on listening and speaking. The languages, vocabulary related to animals and habitats, simple present tense sentences in classroom language for communication, and for the objectives. By the end of the lesson, we want the students to be able to identify different animal habitats. They will be able to describe the characteristics of each habitat. They're able to use simple present tense sentences to talk about animals and the habitats. Last but not least, they will practice listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. The materials that will be needed in this lesson is pictures of flashcards of different animal habitats, and then storybook or short reading passages about animals and habitats, whiteboard or chart paper for vocabulary and sentence structure, sheets with activities related to animal habitats, and then markers, pencils, and crayons. For the duration, it will take about 2 hours, but it could take longer, depends on the student's proficiency in English and how fast they can learn. It might take longer than 2 hours, like maybe 2 meetings or even more. For the warm-up session, the teacher will show pictures of various animal habitats and ask students to identify them, discuss with students what they know about each habitat and the animals that live there, and then introduce new vocabulary related to animal habitats such as forest, ocean, desert, etc. For the presentation stage, read short passages. The teacher should read a short story or passages about different animals and habitats using visuals and gestures to aid comprehension. And then discuss the characteristics of each habitat, emphasizing key vocabulary and sentence structures. And then model simple present tense sentences about animals and their habitats. For example, the lion lives in the grasslands. For the practice stages, divide students into pairs or small groups and provide them with guided exercises to practice forming sentences about animal habitats. Encourage students to use the target language structures while discussing and describing different habitats, and then provide additional reading passages or listening activities for students to practice comprehension skills. So for the application stages, engage students in group activity where they create a mini project about a specific animal and its habitat. Each group will present the project describing the animal, its habitat, and why it's suited to that environment. Encourage students to use the target language structures in their presentations. And for the assessment, we can observe students' participation and use of target language reading activities, evaluate students' comprehension through oral responses and written exercises, assess students' ability to apply new language skills in real-life context during the group presentation. For the follow-up, assign your homework tasks that reinforce the target language structures, such as writing short paragraphs about their favorite animal and its habitat. And last but not least, provide opportunities for students to share their homework with the class in the next lesson, promoting further practice and peer feedback. And that's all from me. I give it back to moderator.
Thank you, dear presenters. To wrap up our presentation, this is the conclusion. Okay. In conclusion, listening and speaking skills are integral components of language acquisition, requiring active engagement and interaction from young learners. Listening involves both bottom-up decoding and top-down contextual skills, while speaking entails participating in two-way conversation and requires simultaneous thinking and speaking. When teaching these skills, it's essential to adhere to principles that promotes authentic communication and cater to the developmental level of learners. By incorporating a variety of listening and speaking activities, educators can create a conducive environment that encourage young learners to engage actively and develop their language proficiency. These activities integrated into a lesson plan should progress from controlled to independent practice, allowing learners to gradually build confidence and autonomy in their language use. Ultimately, fostering a supportive and interactive classroom environment lays the foundation for young learners to become proficient and confident communicators in English. So that is the end of presentation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.